Alea Stream's in the top, but it slopes down on both sides of Alea Stream. And I'm thinking, how come a river is on the top of a ridge?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's a funny kind of.
Yeah, yeah.
I know why. It was an awai. It was a ditch created by the Hawaiians on the top of the ridge to bring water down to the taro fields.
Yeah.
Tell us about the area from the Wailuku River up to Hakalau. What was really important about that area or interesting about that area in terms of the sugar lands?
Nice, good soil, well drained, lots of water, so you could transport the cane down the slopes to the mills by flumes. The soil, by the way, and Richard knows this now that he owns several hundred acres right there in Pepacao, it's a volcanic ash. It fell out of the sky. This is not parent rock that degraded into soil. Believe it or not, those soils that are some 12 feet deep is ash that fell from the sky. And
wow, I never knew that. That is so interesting.
Richard, if you find a stone in the middle of your field, I can guarantee you it came from the road that was built.
Yeah, I noticed that.
They built a road,
Amazing.
and all the machines are in there, and the stones migrated from the road out into the field. But the other thing about this coastline where you are, Richard, is right in the name of your company, Hamakua Springs. There are so many springs along this coast. The rivers are fed by all of these springs, and there's many of them from, the 2,000-foot level, maybe down to the 800-foot level. And all these rivers are called ever-flowing. So from the Wailuku to Umauma, and some people call it Umauma now. Umauma was the last of the ever-flowing rivers. And beyond that, going north towards Honoka, the rivers run dry. That they will just, dry periods, drought, no more water. Gone. But that from Umauma all the way down to Wailuku never runs dry. Always flowing river, always irrigating, always moving cane down slope. And the mills were all there on the coastline and throwing all their bagasse in the ocean. And holy mackerel, boy, as a small kid, you remember swimming in Hilo Bay with all the bagasse? The 1974 Clean Water Act took care of that. A lot of those mills all shut down.
And what was going on where the land where Hamakua Springs is now? What was that during plantation days?
Almost 100% sugar. The area of Kaupakuea homesteads, that was government land, and it was turned into homesteads. And you had several people up there that were not cane growers. Many of them were, but there are records in our vault about how there was a chicken farmer up there on Kaupakuea homestead above the camp, Richard. You know where that big lone
Norfolk pine?
Yeah, the Norfolk pine that stands all by itself.
Right.
Well, above there was a man who had a chicken farm. He could not get his eggs down to the highway without half of them breaking on the way down because the road, the government road, was so bad shape. And he wrote letters and letters and letters to the government to improve this road because it was a government subdivision, right? But the government had no money to improve the road. Well, guess what? When the plantation shut down in, when was it, 1994, one of the last things Brewer did was pave Kaupakuea Homestead Road. It's the paved road that you use right now to get up to your land.
Why would they have done that?
Land sales, in order to make the properties more valuable and more desirable for sale. It was a pretty rough road.
Oh, man.
I thought you were going to say something about them wrapping up the eggs and using the flume or something.
When I first went up there, John and I went up to look where the dam was on the river.
Wailuku.
Wailuku, yeah. So you know how maps are? They're all in straight lines, yeah? Some angle this way, that way, but straight lines generally. John looked at that and says, you know what? He knew already that I had kind of some ideas about using the land. And he said, you know what you do? You need this. And with his pencil, he drew and included the dam in the sale of the property because I was just about getting ready to buy the property. And he did that because he felt like this would be a good use and it would be good for you to control that. I had no idea at that time, but man alive, can you imagine? He just drew him with his pencil. I don't know how that happened, but I remember that, John.
Yeah, that's the intake, the plantation intake on Wailuku River that went up on grade because it was a flume, and it came right down to the middle of your property. Remember, guys, a lot of these lands, you might be the only third person in line behind the king to own this land, Richard. The king to the plantation, and then the plantation, it came to you. So the lands weren't surveyed modern meets and bounds survey for maybe 150 years. Well, we're selling it to you in the modern era, so I can pretty much draw a line where I think the boundary should be.
Amazing. I had no idea, but now it makes sense. Yeah. One thing I wanted to mention about that flume. So that flume must have been 100 something years old, I guess, coming off of Wailuku.
Mhm.
But in 100 years' time, they've got all these rocks that are rounded. So that just the force of the water moving the rocks around over 100 years makes it round. It was all lava rock before that. But to see it right there is just mind-blowing.
That was a very important water source, and the water source from Wailuku went through that ditch and flume system, and then it fed into the Makea River, or excuse me, into the Alea River, and then we had the Makea River feed into Alea again. And what the plantation did was artificially enhance the flow of Alea stream in order to supply wash water to the larger modern Pepakeo mill. So the amount of waters that were in the Alea stream were greatly enhanced by the plantation feeding more and more of these flumes into Alea. And I swear, I looked at Alea stream, and I'm using my hands here. Alea stream's in the top, but it slopes down on both sides of Alea stream. And I'm thinking, how come a river is on the top of a ridge?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's funny, kind of.
Yeah, yeah.
I know why. It was an awai. It was a ditch created by the Hawaiians, because downslope of where Richard Huon is and all that has all kuleanas.
Yeah,
All
exactly.
kuleanas along Alea stream.
Yeah.
That was an awai that was created by the ancient Hawaiians on the top of the ridge to bring water down to the taro fields.
Yeah, it's amazing. Absolutely amazing. The way you described it. How the hell does a stream end up on the top of the ridge?
It's so interesting to see or to think about the history and all these things that we just take for granted, but they're all there for a reason and were used in certain ways. And I'm so interested in that. It's also interesting when you think about the big picture, how it probably seemed like there would always be sugar. It was so much the fabric of these islands for such a long time, and now it's just gone. I mean, I'm sure we all remember those last cane trucks when they were shutting down, on the highway. And so now we're moving into what comes after. So Richard, I wanted to ask you about that. It'll look different, but something else will replace this old sugar land, the industry. What's happening now? How would you describe that?
Well, because we're on an island in the middle of the Pacific and we get all our stuff from foreign countries, and it takes fossil fuel to bring them here. When you have operations like in the Midwest or in South America that are extremely large, the margins are small, but the volumes are huge. So for our farmers to compete is very difficult. So our farmers need to have multiple income streams to become more resilient. So now we're thinking of, okay, what can we do to help them do this? So we're working with the University of Hawaii Go Farm program and the Cooperative Extension Service, and we're trying to see, is there a possibility of having income into the future that's not tied to the regular economic system? For example, trees, special kinds of trees that are, have hardwood that you can carve and make into, high value stuff. Well, if you stuck that in a place in your property that you're not going to use and harvest it 25 years later, that can go toward help your kids go to school, or you can use it for yourself for your retirement. So that's an income stream that's separate from everything else. And then, talking about the sugar, I was talking to John about this. What about the possibility, because, they bred all these really specialized cane for that particular area. Could we then make tissue culture cane and then find a use for it? I wonder if making beer would be a, I don't know, a special, but just thinking out loud, yeah. Because if you did a tissue culture, then you could mechanize it. I'm not talking really big, but a small tractor could help, get something like that going. So that's one possibility. Another possibility is to use hydroponics. Let's just say you want to grow sweet potato. Sweet potato now, it takes 18 months or maybe a year to harvest, but there's so much left in the ground, it's amazing. Then you got to wait so many, maybe 18 months before you come back in. What happened if you change that and made it hydroponic? At one end is a place where all the fertilizer is in, and maybe 100 feet, let's say, just an example. Every so many feet, you have something that you can put a bag on it with sterile media in it and plant your potatoes in that. What will happen is 100% of the potatoes will be saleable. And two, you can replant tomorrow. Yes, it doesn't have to be big, because imagine this. You can send your kids out, go check out the water. It won't take much. So just trying to think of the different possibilities of different crops, multiple income streams to help them out. Anyway, that's the general idea, yeah? So that's kind of what we're looking at.
I'm so impressed with this conscious planning of, what comes next. The sugar is gone. We've got this farmland now. We're importing so much of our food, and you have such a conscious thought process of what do we do next that is sustainable and that will work to carry us into the future. A lot of people don't think that way. People think really short term. So it's so neat to see your modern Ahupua project and all these different ideas you have.
A lot of possibility. They just got to sit down and talk in a group. But the thing that really motivates me the most is trying to set a vision for kids to see that there's a future for them. And if they did it this way, and what they're achieving is to feed the people, there cannot be anything more valuable than being able to feed the people. So if we can kind of help them do this and make it successful, we'll see. I really think it really gets the attention of some kids, when we kind of talk like that.